Hey everybody, welcome back to Birds of a Feather. It's like 16th Squawk or something like that. And we've been having a great time with these squawks. We've, talked all about a whole bunch of things. I even had our first flock together with Tammy Jelinek and Raphael Goico. Our next one that's coming up is with Rick Welch and Luke McGinnis. So super stoked about that conversation. That'll be released next week, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. And so tonight we're back, just Dustin and I, and we're going to move forward. Dustin, what do you got for me, man? How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I was actually going to talk to you about something that happened, and it it really, really bugged me for a good probably 24 hours. Um, so there is a guy at the church I went to years back, and he's an incredibly well-educated man in theology and doctrine. I mean, he's one of those guys when he talks, you instinctively listen. He doesn't say a lot, but when he does, it's pretty powerful. Um, we have talked over the years since I left the church, and he knows that, well, I mean, at least I was under the impression he knew where I stood on things. He himself, Alan, would not be considered orthodox in any way, shape, or form if anyone knew what he thought and practiced. Um, he sent me a text on Wednesday out of the blue. I haven't talked to him in forever. And it said basically, it said, do you practice? Do you also practice besides just reading? And I was like, that's kind of a weird question. And so I responded and I didn't think anything really of it. I didn't think much deeper than the question. And I said, absolutely. I said, in fact, my reading is only an hour and a half of my day. I time block my reading from 8 to 9:30 in the morning, and I have 5 books that I'm currently reading right now. And they sit here from 8 to 9:30. That's what I do. I read. I finished Mind Power, dude, bro. We need to do an episode on that book. But anyway, I said, yes, reading is only an hour and a half of my day, and the rest I would consider practice because I am living out the things that I am inputting into my mind. And I said, for example, I imprint every night as I'm going to bed. I imprint on my subconscious. I have mantras every night that I go over in my head. There are limitless opportunities. I can accomplish anything. There's all sorts of different things. When I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I do is I connect to what I call a higher power, which I believe is just energy and the people around me and the elements of the universe. That's my higher power, which is really my power. And I have all of these things that I practice, so I respond to him like that. And he says, okay. And I was like, well, that's weird. I said, what prompted you to ask me that question? And he said, well, I was talking to pastor, and he's talking about the pastor of the old church who I still converse with Raphael every once in a while. Well, pastor was told me that he and I were talking the other day, and he said you were seeking but not finding. And dude, straight up, man, that was offensive to me on multiple levels. It was offensive because I consider that to be gossip, which Christians are supposed to stay away from. I mean, the Bible's very clear about gossip and slander, but I considered that to be gossip that pastor was talking about me behind my back in a negative way to another man who he has no idea if I have a relationship with about how I'm doing, rather than saying, well, why don't you ask him how he's doing? And he'll probably tell you. I would rather not give you my opinion of how he's doing or whatever, however the course of that conversation went. The other thing that was just offensive as shit to me, but it's so typical of Christians, is that he assumed I was a mission field. And that is the only reason he reached out to me. He didn't reach out to me to ask how my family's doing, to
Jeez.
ask how I'm doing, to ask if everything's okay. He didn't ask anything about that. He just wanted to know where I was according to his view. And man, I sat there for a second and I was like, and so my response to him verbatim was, aha, okay, how elite of you. And I said, next time, if you want to know how I'm doing, reach out to me directly without an agenda. But dude, it literally, man, I can normally blow stuff off. Like if I have a conversation with a Christian who's volatile, which most of them are, I can blow stuff like that off. Or if, whatever, I can blow most stuff off. But man, I sat with that for about 24 hours. It really bugged me, man. It bugged me that is such a typical mindset of that group of people. And I know because I used to do it, dude. I used to do that prayer groups were really just gossip circles. That's all they are. I mean, it it frustrated me. Have you experienced anything like that since you've
So, oddly, and as we're talking about this, I'm sitting back and I'm actually starting to be a little surprised. I'm like, wow, I don't think I've actually had anybody from my past try to reconvert me, so to speak. Um, Possibly one exception, my associate pastor from Lift Church. Um, but it wasn't like that. Lenny was dope. He's the kind of guy that genuinely cares. So he wasn't about coming in and just trying to like accomplish an agenda. He genuinely cared. Like, how you doing? How's family? How's life? Whatever. And then we'd get into conversations, and if it broached the subject, it broached the subject. So he would be the possible exception. And if anybody's listening, lest you say I'm lying, like you, like some of you are still saying about my mistake when I made my first video with Jen. This is just based on my recollection. I'm doing my best to think about it, but I don't think I've had anybody else actually try to talk to me about that. It's almost
okay?
it's like it's avoided. And
Well, which
I'm having sorry, I'm having the opposite kind of reaction than you are. I'm thinking, wow, you guys are all Christians and none of you are trying to save me. Like you're just all
okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. Don't you find it really confusing that this man and all of your old friends and all the people that I knew at my old church, not a single person has tried to rescue my soul from the eternal conscious torment of hell.
only new people that you don't know from your past.
Yeah, only
Right.
people that I discuss with things with now who I don't didn't know before.
Right. So I will say that I've had people that never knew me and I've never actually met in person reach out to me through some random text saying, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you because I've heard blah blah blah, and, whatever." And we go into conversation. I'm not trying to, blah 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 to you, convert you. And then next thing you know, they're trying to use the presuppositional argument on me or whatever, which is fine. I can see it from a mile away, but I at least appreciate the fact that if you are a Christian and it's your duty to reach people, at least these guys are trying. And I'm like, so one of them we are anticipating to have on our show in August. Hopefully, they're able to do it. Him and a friend of his. So I'm very much looking forward to that conversation. And I won't announce her name just in case they can't make it, but that would be an incredible conversation because I commend that. I really do. Um, but uh, but yeah, it's odd to me, Dustin, that now that you're mentioning, I'm like, yeah, aside from Lenny, I don't think I've had anybody actually
Yeah.
like my own family. It's we can't even talk religion or theology because it's not a gentle, caring. I pray for your soul only. Like I know they do that, but we can't even dialogue. It's like if I rebut and I say something to counter their position, oh, you're just trying to find, fifth leg to the cat. You're just being evil and you don't care. I'm like, no, I'm genuinely responding because I think your logic is off, but please show me why I'm wrong. And I counter with faith alone. And I say, there's no empirical data. There's no reason for you to believe. Well, I know that I know that I know that I know because I've had moments and experiences with God. There's too many things that have happened. And I'm like, okay, have you? Then, we go down the whole trail. So it's never fun. That's not a healthy conversation. It's never healthy with my family. But anyway, I'm just kind of talking out loud now because you've really kind of
Yeah,
struck.
so I mean, look, I find it very odd that this man has not asked how my family is, has not asked how my kids are, has not asked how I am. He cares absolutely nothing about my life. He wanted to get me in alignment with his way of thinking. And he didn't even go about that in the best way. But what's amazing is when I told him, well, yeah, I put all this stuff into practice. I do this and this and this, and here's kind of the things I do. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you do? And he was like, oh, well, I listen for the voice of God and all this ambiguous crap that doesn't do anything.
Right, right.
And
God talks to me in my dreams.
yeah, and so, but I thought to myself, look, if you allegedly have the only correct answer for how to have a right relationship with God, and that knowledge, which you have exclusively out of the other 29,999 denominations that say they have it, and the consequences of you not sharing that with me could be the eternal conscious torment of my disembodied soul forever and ever in a non geographical location called hell. Why are you not pounding at my door to help me? And
Well,
and and as a ripple effect, saving my kids, maybe.
sure. Well, because the problem as I see it, and this is a problem I'm seeing consistently now to a point where it's starting to become utterly frustrating and irritating to no end. I am finding the more I demonstrate to Christians that I dialogue with that you can't prove the existence of God with empirical data, the more they're like, well, sure, yeah, you can't, but you just have to, the Lord has to talk to you, the Lord has to tell you, the Lord has to impact you, his grace has to, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. That's all fine and good. You're preaching, 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 but you're not telling me how I'm supposed to have that experience. So what you're telling me is I'm literally hopeless until some God out there decides to come and talk to me and awaken me so that I can believe what you believe because you can't tell me how to duplicate that experience, which ironically, I already had once in my life. And yet here I am now. And I'm like, that's interesting because apparently either this God you think is Almighty Yahweh lied to me and deceived me and then kicked my ass out of the club, or he failed miserably to keep me and make sure that I heard his voice correctly. And now I'm supposed to just wait on him to do something, and apparently I'm not supposed to talk against him, and I'm not supposed to help people escape from this because I'm just some evil dude that's trying to take away people's faith. And I'm like, I'm at a point where I'm just like I'm about to flip my lid, man. It's just frustrating.
Well, and the other thing that is so dumbfounding to me, and you've seen me do this with people, that is what they will say. The two things they will say is, well, you have to have an experience. That's one. Okay. And they all say that. Well, it's because you never really experienced
You didn't
God.
experience it the way I did.
Right. Exactly. And because I did experience all of it, but apparently I didn't experience it exactly like them.
Apparently, me neither.
So, but the one thing is they'll say experience, and then the other thing they'll say is the Bible. Well, the Bible says, okay. So here's what's mind blowing to me. If we asked every single one of those people, and you've seen me ask a bunch of people this, and I get the same exact answer every single time. Okay, so are you willing then to apply that standard of evidence for truth all the way across the board? So whoever has an experience, whatever they attach to that experience, that is the truth? Well, no. Well, why not? Well, shit, I don't know. Cuz. Just, cuz. I mean, Bro, it blows my mind. Every single person has said the same thing to me. They're like, well, I guess you bring up a good point, Dustin. Well, hell yeah, it's a good point. You have no litmus test for truth. None.
Yep.
And anything you try and come up with, if I ask you to apply that litmus test evenly across the board, you will not do it because you know that it can't be done.
It's just God because, well,
Because
because so I mean, but bro, like, and I know you can. I know that I can speak for you here because we were both there. I said the same bullshit when I was a Christian, and
I
it was
did.
well. The only reason you have breath is because of Almighty God. You can't even talk and communicate without God,
We
and
live and move and have our
yeah,
being in
and I
God.
could never even like when I was trapped in. Bro, when I say people are brainwashed, I'm not being mean. I'm saying you are caught in a mind virus just like I was, just like you were, where you are incapable of reasoning. You're incapable of logic in any way, shape, or form. You're incapable of recognizing that you are just making up some concept called God because you've been indoctrinated that God must be the only possible way that we can have standards and morals and experiences and objectivity and blah blah blah. And it's just like once that brainwashing's gone, you're just like, what was I thinking to just say God because God?
Well, man, I keep going back to this. I've said it on a few squawks, but I mean, I'll probably just keep saying it and be a broken record. But it is literally like that scene from The Matrix where Neo unplugs from the Matrix and begins to see it for what it is.
Yeah,
There's this moment in time when, and I think for most people, at least this has been my experience from what I've seen from innumerable people who've deconstructed. It is a gradual process, but you see it coming. But there's this one moment in time in each of our journeys where we make the decision, I am done staying plugged into this construct. And all of a sudden you unplug and you go, oh my God. And the further away from that matrix you get, the more odd it looks.
I think, and so I've been thinking about this, and I love the way you just drew that analogy because one of the things that I have come to realize is Christians who have read my book and have gotten to the end and have said, nope, I didn't deconvert. I still remained a
Just a
Christian.
big straw man.
I was a straw man or whatever. Um, and one person recently brought to my attention that I said in the book numerous times, and even you had said it one time in the book as well, in the preface that um, there's no harm in reading this book because if at the end you decide to stay to remain a Christian, your faith will just be
Your faith
strengthened
is stronger.
and your faith is stronger or whatever. And I got to thinking about that and I realized something. I don't think those Christians ever unplugged to actually see reality and then said, nope, I think I prefer that and that makes more sense. Because I don't think anybody in their right mind, once you unplug, can possibly say, in reality, and now I know that the guy in the movie does because he wants to go back to steak or whatever, but I think like once you know the truth, it's like how do you pretend anymore?
Well, you can't. So
Like
I'll tell you,
in the Matrix, it worked because you can literally plug in and disappear from
right.
your brain. But in real life, you
Well,
can't do that.
you knew there was a control over it and it was temporary. I will tell you, I think there's two classes of Christians, Alan. I think there are the people who have unplugged, but they opt to remain plugged in because of paychecks and positions, and we know a few of those people. I am firmly convinced that they see through the sophistry and they go, I have way too much to lose to turn my back on this.
But
And
see,
so,
I don't think they've completely ever unplugged to a degree where they truly see it all clearly because, and hear me out, I think the paycheck and the prestige and whatever it is keeps them from taking that final step. It's like a blinder that holds them trapped in that matrix without
Maybe so.
the final step.
You may be right, but I think you would agree with me when I say this. Those people are well aware of the holes in their positions.
And I agree with you. And you know what I think
Okay.
what they're going to
Okay.
do? What they're going to do is the same thing that we did for years. Just find the next theology that plugs that hole,
Right. Or they'll just put it on a shelf and they'll ignore it.
or just
Okay, so I think there's that class of people. Then I think that there are the class of people that is really the rest of them who you're right. They have no reference point other than the brainwashing. And I'll give you an example. So when I was doing countercult apologetics years and years ago, I used to debate guys from Brigham Young and Jehovah's Witness schools, and I used to walk into Kingdom halls all over San Antonio and ask for the head elder or the bishop, and I would talk to them. I would have their New World Translation with me.
nice.
So I would talk to those people, and it was typically the Mormons, but in any or there was this one atheist called the Fool. I think I told you about
Yeah,
him.
yeah, you did. You've talked about him on the show. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so through the years, there were two or three people that, bro, I got confronted with something, and there was a chilling intuition that knew what that person was saying was correct. I intuitively knew that that information was irrefutable, and I would gloss right over it. I would get that feeling and then just put it up on this shelf way over here. And oh, we're going to ignore that. Now let's get back to this one verb.
Right,
And
right,
and so that's the rest of everyone. That's what most people do. So you present your book and they read it and they go, "Oh, oh that's just dumb. That's not, no, I don't do that." And well, he must be talking about Episcopalians or he must be talking about Methodists, and whatever the case may be.
right.
You have all those people, but then you have the people that they do see the holes. They see them and they know they're there, but they just keep scrambling for something to plug in that dam.
Right. Well, and so as an example of those who I think see the holes but can't get to that point of unplugging because the brainwashing is rich enough and they have some reason why they refuse to let that go to the point where they can actually step outside the matrix and truly see it clearly. One example, I've dialogued with people. Um, I've just had experiences with God, and I can't explain them any other way. Wait, I'm sorry. So you can't explain them, but you're going to explain them with God. So so I hear this a lot. And so
The mystery, it's a mystery.
your answer is you can't explain it, and my response is, well, then why can't you just leave it at I can't explain it, and that's it. If you can't explain it, then you can't explain it, and maybe one day you'll find a way to explain it because you'll know that you can verify the explanation. But like why drudge back into 15 years or 30 years ago in your memory and say, well, I had this experience once and I can't explain it and therefore it must be God. The only reason therefore it must be God is because you've never had a chance yet to unplug from that matrix, step outside of it and say, oh, there are other options. I can't explain it's one of them, and I don't need to fill that explanation. But as long as you're in this side of the matrix and you don't want to go out there, if you don't want to go out, you are going to continue to say, but there's no other explanation but God, and there has to be an explanation. It's got to be God, and I don't want to go out there, so I'm going to stay in here and just call it God. I don't think those Christians have ever stepped outside the matrix. They've never gotten unplugged long enough, at all, in my opinion, to actually see it a different way, so they can say, "Wow, this actually does make more sense than that." I
Yep.
just don't think they've unplugged ever. And because they're keeping themselves that brainwash, they want it. They want to keep it because of whatever reason, like you said, the paycheck, the prestige, the family, afraid to lose your spouse. I got to be honest, there's a lot of good reasons why a Christian would not want to leave. I understand those reasons. My problem, and I talk about this in the book, my problem with it is, I get it. You've got a lot of great reasons, and they're honorable reasons. Honestly, like I get it. I understand why you don't want to sacrifice all this stuff you work for. But here's my thing: the longer you postpone it, the less life you have to live on the other side with the truth. Just cut the cord and then figure out your life. That's what I did. That's what you did. I'm not a young chicken, man. I'm not a spring chicken. I had to revamp my entire life, bro. But it was worth it. And it hurt like a mother at first. It took me a long time to get my head straight and to figure things out. But that period of time, I would never regret the fact that I did what I did. And now I'm on the other side of this thing, living a life that's true. It just makes so much more sense than continuing to pretend something just because you refuse to let something sink in. Like I don't want those blockers. I want truth to come in.
Yeah, the freedom on the other side of that journey is the most liberating, healing, and soul-filling experience I think a person can ever have.
It is. And yes, you very well may lose some very important things in your life, but you'll gain something even more important, reality.
Yep.
And then you can rebuild your life however you want, not the way some system of thought taught you to have build your life. And if your life is that, if your family or your job or whatever is that fragile that changing a belief system is going to destroy it, bro, lady, I
But
got concerns right out the gate that you have stuff going on in your life that is way outside the bounds of truth. That is called cult. That is cult in its entirety that will cost you so much just for changing a belief.
yep. Yeah, man. And that's the interesting thing is people want to scoff at me when I say I use the phrase, I say, when I was freed from the cult of Christianity, blah, 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 blah. And, pe- oh, well, I mean, Christianity is not a cult. Well, it absolutely is. I mean, it absolutely is. And I will tell them, listen, I'm not using that term as a pejorative. I'm using it technically and in its correct sense. It is a cult because if you do not align with their particular nuance of thinking, there are repercussions for that. And many times those repercussions are detrimental to your life. That is the epitome of a cult. It may be packaged a little differently, but it is the same thing.
Yep. And the only reason Christians like us, even when we were Christians, have a hard time seeing it as a cult is because one of the things that is embedded in the sheer fabric of Christianity is that everything else out there is a cult.
Right. Yep.
And
It's
so,
us against them.
yeah, so you automatically think, well, no, those are cults. I can tell you what a cult is. Not us.
Yeah.
We've been taught to believe.
Mormons are cult
Yeah,
members. Oh
Mormons.
gosh. I
Mormons.
mean, they rely on experience in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, right. Right,
We
exactly.
rely on because
Right, right. And
yeah.
experience it because no, but we
Yep.
have Jesus. Jesus is the only reason. He's the solution. And I mean, I'll grant it. Like that is, if there was anything that made Christianity unique, it and still does to me is the factor of faith alone. Like you don't have that in any other religion. So I get that, and it's powerful. But unfortunately, you've been sold a bag of goods because right out the gate you have a problem because you don't need a savior by faith alone. Because the only reason you need that is if you're a sinner. And if you're not a sinner, you don't need a solution. It's like Dan Barker, he says, would you buy a band-aid for somebody who cut you just to sell you a band-aid? I mean,
Man.
that's exactly what we're doing here in Christianity. It's just great.
Yep.
So yeah, man, I'm getting more and more frustrated by these conversations where and I'm not just talking your average Christian. I'm talking people that we have journeyed with that I would consider very intelligent, that and beyond intelligent, like guys and women and boys and girls that could run circles around me in real life stuff, like scientifically, like empirically, like philosophically. These guys are brilliant. And I know they're brilliant. Like I think of a guy like Don Preston. Oh my goodness. I would never want to debate him on anything else except this subject because he's really good at what he does and he's super smart. But the dude cannot defend the existence of God because it's just not possible to do. But he's so brainwashed that he thinks it is and he can't see it. He just can't see it. It makes me sad because I'm like, imagine what he could contribute to the world if he wasn't trapped defending something called full preterism. Like it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah, and man, I mean, that's it. That becomes the entire emphasis is protecting that construct and nothing else matters.
Yep. Nothing else matters. So I'm just going to hold on to it. And when I don't have an answer for you, I'm not going to get out of them. I'm not going to unplug. There's no way. I'm going to hold on to my construct and say I had a moment with God or I had an experience or whatever. But Dustin, like this is why I wrote the book because I don't think it's possible to debate someone out of it. You can't you can't like you can't faith isn't something you choose. I don't you don't just wake up and it's not like an on and off switch. It's not like I can say, well, today I have faith. I think tomorrow I'm going to shut it off and just live without faith for a day and see what it's like. You know what I mean? You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. It's you don't have the ability to just be logicized out of faith any more than you have to be logicized into faith. It's not the way it works. You have to deprogram. You've got to completely and utterly take away the program that makes you base your life on this thing called faith because it's been indoctrinated and instilled into you to such a degree that you actually think it's a good way to live when you don't live like that in any other area of life, only when it comes to God. That's the only time that people live by faith. No other sphere of life do we live by faith. Not a single Christian lives by faith in any other sphere of life except with God.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is our time. Timer just went off. So
Oh, awesome, man. Well, I mean, shoot, that went by quick.
yeah, it did. But dude, I'm excited. Like we got like I said, we got Rick and Luke coming up next week. That's gonna be
Yeah, I'm
fun.
excited about that. They're good guys.
They are really good guys, man. I cannot wait to talk with them. They seem so genuine and I know from talking with Rick many times, he's just one of the most honest Christians I've ever met. Like I still think, and he knows that I think this. I still think he's trapped by the brainwashing and can't unplug because something's just blocking him there. But he at least is honest about it. Like he just I don't know how else to explain. He will answer your questions honestly and then say, "But I still believe," which again, that's the trap. But he's honest. He's such a genuine guy, and I just love him so much. He's a
Yeah.
really cool guy. And Luke seems to be the same kind of guy. So we got them coming up. We're gonna have Raphael and Tammy up again here. I think in July. We're gonna have a special episode with Derek Lambert and oh my God, I'm embarrassed for just a second. I'm having a brain fart. Holy cow, dude. We
Uh, Mark.
Mark, thank you. Yes, Mark Shachira.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was having a brain
Yeah.
fart. Mark Shachira. So and that's going to be a real blast because Mark has got some really awesome material on astrology and how it relates to the Bible. So that's going to be fun. And I think there's others, but anyway, just those are just some of the previews coming up. So I'm really excited about the next. Oh, and we got Gerald Crack coming on. That's next.
And I'm so excited for that, bro.
Yes, Gerald and Tristan Gabriel. That episode's gonna be fly. I can't wait
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Gerald is, man, he's one of my favorite people, and that dude is a sharp, sharp thinker.
Yes, yes, definitely. And so is Tristan. Obviously, he's a
Yep.
brilliant guy. So that's gonna be a fun episode. So that's kind of our lineup coming up in the next few months, plus our normal squawks. So anyway,
BS.
yeah, Dustin, anything else you want to add today?
That's it.
All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next week for our third, well, second, whichever flock.
Second,
Second
second block.
Second flock. All right, everybody, have a
Second
good
block. All
night.
right.